No, Elizabeth!
No, Elizabeth!
No! Elizabeth, don't!
This is Left Unsupervised with Elizabeth Morales, your comedic host that's done it all. Actress, writer, director, producer, hairdresser, bartender, beauty pageant organizer, rock and roll PR expert, talent coordinator, bookkeeper, hostess, makeup artist, wife, mother, and general badass. Now listen as she interviews all of her favorite celebrities, doctors, and entrepreneurs that she's met along the way. This week, Elizabeth is left unsupervised with her guest,
Joe Menendez. Okay, so Macy, today we have Joe Menendez, who is an amazing director. And I want to know your craziest audition story.
Oh, God.
Do you,
Yeah.
keep it down to one, please, okay? I see your brain clicking over there. With
No, I have one, for sure. So,
What is it?
A couple of years ago, I guess I say that now. It's been like a decade, I guess now, but it still haunts me in my sleep. I was down to one of the final people for a big part on the last season of True Blood.
Okay.
And so they had the scripts all kinds of confidential because no one knew how it was going to end. And so I got like one little tiny like page and a half that I'd gone and auditioned on several times. And so then I go in to do the screen test and they hand me...
Wait a minute. This is the screen test?
Yeah, so screen
Okay.
testing for this role.
Okay.
So I go in to do the screen test. It's like the producer session. So it's the
Right.
director, all the producers, everyone at the network that's making this show is in the room.
Right.
And they hand me all of these additional sides. And so I'm dyslexic, first of all. So that's like my worst
shit, I
nightmare. But I didn't want to be like, guys, I'm dyslexic. I can't read this. I'm going to throw up now. So I was just like, oh, yeah, no problem. So I get
Can
up
I
there.
have a couple minutes? Can I have a couple minutes
Oh,
outside?
listen, I could have had 5 days and it wouldn't have helped me with this. So I'm up there and I'm like, I got this role. And I start reading through it. And it's like, I'm having to say these lines and I'm running through the woods. So I'm like pantomiming, jogging. And then it's like, and then a vampire comes and it bites you on the neck and it starts dragging you through the forest. And I'm like just hurling myself on the ground. And then I'm like crawling under a rock. And like,
Did you say any lines, or was this all like...
I mean, listen, I don't even know. I was like trying to follow the lines, and basically, I can't even describe what happened to me in that room. But at the end of it, I just stood up and I was like, yeah, I'm done. Thanks. Like, this is over. I'm embarrassed. You're embarrassed for me. Like, please just let me go out to my car and cry now. And, like, my hands, when I got in the car, my hands were shaking so hard. Like, I felt like I'd been through trauma.
You're bruised.
I was bruised.
What are your lines? I don't fucking know. I was being chased by a vampire.
I was like kickboxing an invisible person up there while trying to be like, no, don't. It was horrible. What's your most embarrassing audition story, Elizabeth? I know you have one.
I have a few, but one that really kind of sticks out in my mind, which I was horrified, but what do? You know, I went on this audition. I did a great job. I get a call back, right? So I'm all stoked. And I'm you know, working the night before, just like getting ready for my call back. Around 10 o'clock at night, my dog gets sprayed by a skunk. And I don't know if you know this, but if your dog or your cat or your pet gets sprayed, if they come in the house, you're screwed.
Oh, no.
And so I open the door because they were outside in the backyard. I open the door. The dog comes hauling ass inside the house. I smell it immediately. He's rubbing up against me.
I can only imagine your reaction to that.
Oh. What do you mean? Because I'm OCD?
I'm sure it was small.
So I have nothing to clean skunk spray, right? So I had read that
no
you
one
take
has skunk
tomato
spray handy.
tomato sauce, right? I have no tomato sauce. I use marinara sauce on my dog, right?
Because it's the same.
It's tomato, right? So I'm like putting this all over him.
You're making a pasta with poor Rocco.
They tell you, do not put water because it's oil, so it'll spread more. So, of course, I don't listen because I got to wash him, me with the washing. So I'm washing him. Girl, I took like 3 showers. I show up at the callback. I get in the car and I call my husband and I'm like, baby, I got that skunk smell up in my nose. My car smells like it, whatever. I go into the audition. I swear to God, I could smell it in my body. I get to the audition and all of a sudden everybody around me like, I smell a skunk. Do you smell a skunk? And I'm like, oh yeah, I smell it too. Oh my God.
Everyone start inching away from you in the casting room, like chairs are being scooted
into the room with all the executives in there. All of a sudden, everybody's looking at each other and they're like, I smell skunk. Do you smell skunk? And I'm like, fuck. And they were just staring at me. I think they knew. They either probably thought I smoked a huge fatty before I came in.
Same thing. You were just blazed.
So I leave the office. I pick up my son. Everybody at school says he smells like skunk. My husband at work, my agent calls me and he's like, did you smoke a fatty in the parking lot? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, do you smell like, they say it smells like, I go, girl, I got sprayed. And then,
oh my God. And yeah, like who's going to believe that?
Aiden's friend's mom comes over to pick up Aiden and she's all, I think she thought I burned a fatty before while Aiden was on a plane date.
Oh my God.
Just call me Skunk Girl. So hopefully, if Joe has a new movie with any superheroes, I could be Skunk Girl.
Oh my God. Yes. Let's tell him about your new character whenever he gets on this show. I'll help pitch you.
Okay, thanks. All right.
Here's Skunk Girl and her superpower is stinking everyone out of the room.
Needless to say, I didn't get the part.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Well, let's go grab Joe.
All right, Joe, we've got a new superhero for you. Get ready.
Skunk Girl. Today we have an award-winning director, Joe Menendez, on our show. Joe is a film and television director that has directed over 100 hours of television, including hit shows, one-hour dramas like Siren, 12 Monkeys, From Dusk Till Dawn, and Queen of the South. He is also an acclaimed producer, writer, and feature film director known for his hit Spanish film, Ladrón que roba ladrón. Welcome, Joe.
Hello. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here.
Me too. This is great.
So let's just get into this, man. Where are you from?
Let's do it. I was born in New York City, but at a very young age, I was like 2 or 3 months old. My parents moved to Miami, the Mecca where all Cubans eventually end up, it seems.
Amen.
Amen. But I grew up in Hialeah, which is a
Hialeah.
La ciudad que progresa. And it's a suburb of Miami. Best known for the racetrack, but it's also known as water factories and what is it? Agua fango factoria. Water mud and factories. But that's where I grew up. But then moved out here to Los Angeles in 1992. So I've been out here longer than I've been in Miami. So LA is now weirdly home. I've been here longer than, it was a weird thing a few years ago when I realized that I'd flipped, that I was in LA longer than I was in Miami.
Right. So now when you say I'm going back home, it's really not your home.
I still say I'm going back home.
I do that all the time.
My impulse is still to say, because that's where my mother is, my sister, all my family, my cousins. It's where your formative years, I suppose, will always be home.
Are they always freaking out for you because of the earthquakes?
No, not really. They at first there was there was concern just in general, just moving to Los Angeles. That was a big freaky thing. But I remember I was here for the Northridge Quake, and
me too.
Yeah, that was insane. And I remember that when it happened, I still had a landline, and I called my mother instantly, and it was like 7:30 in the morning for her, and I said, Mom, there was an earthquake here. I'm fine. The apartment isn't fine, but I'm fine.
Where did you live?
I lived in Hollywood.
Okay.
And I felt it, even though it was in Northridge. And so my mother turned on the news. She's like, no, they're not saying anything on the news. Oh, wait, there it is. Like, I literally called her before live news broke in. So that was a weird thing. But other than that, you sort of are used to it,
Let me tell you, I was a mile from the epicenter, and it was the first time that I've ever felt an earthquake. And my roommate found me in a fetal position in the bathroom saying, Armageddon is here.
Yeah. I remember, standing in the doorway and saying, let it end, let it end, let it end. I just kept repeating that. It was scary.
It was like the sound. Yeah. I didn't know earthquakes had, it felt like a train was going through my apartment. I had a 100-gallon fish tank. All on the floor with tropical fish. It was crazy. Well, let me ask you, when you moved to LA, what is the thing you mostly miss about Miami?
Oh, that's quick. The food.
Food.
Yeah, the Cuban food. Although there are serviceable Cuban restaurants out here, and this is no offense to any Cuban restaurant out here, it's just not the same as as the food in Miami. So that's the thing that I miss the most. And when I go to Miami, I like. I eat, I sort of like go on this like fasting thing for like a week before I go to Miami. And then when I go there, I just, I go.
Sick.
Yeah. And I go to every single Latin America. I go to all the Cuban restaurants and I just ingest rice and beans and bistec empanizado. And all
Shut
that
up,
stuff.
you're making me hungry.
Yeah, but the food is the thing. Then there, obviously family, is obviously a key thing because you miss events and you miss things and you get phone calls and you see photographs of things that you've missed. But my first instant reaction was food, and then but in no particular order, food and family. It could be family and food, depending.
Let me tell you, I make a mean Cuban coffee with espumita and everything.
Oh, look at that! Every morning I make my Cuban coffee.
You do?
Morning. Oh yeah.
Oh my God! Okay, we are.
La llave and bustelo. I make them both in the morning. Yeah.
Well, Joe, tell me, what was your first project? What was that like? What was it?
Well, I mean, I was one of those that started making movies at a very young age on Super 8 film since I was a little kid. So I literally don't know how to do anything else other than be a director. Had this not worked out, honestly, I don't know what else I would have done. So, by the time I sort of got to my, first quote unquote professional job, and I had directed reenactments and I had done stuff for Telemundo. But sort of what I consider my first sort of real, gauntlet of, where it was a full, because, up to that point, I had done a lot of things where the crews were smaller. There were skeleton crews. It was like max crew of 10. So I did a show for Nickelodeon, I think it was in 1999 or 2000, called The Brothers Garcia.
I remember.
And The Brothers Garcia was a half-hour single cam show. And so, I got on that show. And I'd done the prep, and and again, I'd been doing it for a long time by that point. So I knew what to expect, and I day one, call time was 7, and it was at 7 a.m. the AD said, "We're in, Joe. You have the set." And I remember when she said that I turned, and what happened is every single crew person, now all heads turned to me, the cast all turned to me, and it was quiet because suddenly it was like, go. What do what are we doing? So, there was a moment, there was like a moment, I think it may have been like, in my head it was like, 2 hours, but it was maybe like 2 seconds where I was like, holy crap, look at all these people here. And it was, a full crew. But at that moment, it's this weird thing, Elizabeth, because it's like when you've been doing it for a long time and you sort of weirdly know what to do in a moment. And it, frankly, is when you break it down to its smallest components, it's exactly what I used to do when I was 10 and 11 with my brother and my cousins. I'm aiming a camera at actors. So it was essentially just going right back to all right, so here's what we're doing. So I think you stand in here, you come over here, you land here, what do you think? And then you turn, and then, you block it. And everyone's watching. And the reason everyone's watching, I mean, maybe some people are watching to see if you're going to fuck it up and you're going to make a mistake. Like, who's this idiot? Like there's a good amount of people on that crew that's like, why aren't, I should be getting a shot. Who's this moron? And so they're all like,
there's always haters.
Yeah, there's always somebody like that. And that's whatever. But, but instantly you start to do it and you start blocking and like it all makes sense and you get a few laughs and, like, oh, and it like you ease into it. And the crew, the cast goes away, and you turn to the DP, and you're like, "Here's the shot," and I think it's this and this and this, and they go, "Great." And and I remember that I was pulled aside later that people knew within 15, 20 seconds of blocking and staging of that first shot, they're like, "Oh, okay, this guy knows what he's doing," and and it's just. I had been doing it, so I was fully prepared. It wasn't a shock. Like, it was like that moment of like, holy crap. But to this day...
It's that delay. It's like... It's go up to the brain. It's that little 2-minute delay, 2 seconds.
No, it was 2 seconds of out of body where it was like, oh my God, like I'm on a set, and I think I was at Sunset Gower, so it was like a good set, it was like a good lot and all that. And to this day, though, I got to tell you, it's no longer this moment of like shock, but to this day, I've never taken it for granted. I've always had this moment of gratitude. Like, I very rarely have these. Like, I used to have them all the time when I was younger, but it's very rare that you get those moments where you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Wow. But there's moments that you're like, what a cool job that I get to, wake up in the morning and this is what I do. And, at whatever time the call time is, They say we're in, and it's the greatest moment for me now. There's no fear. But it's the greatest moment we're in, and now it's exciting because now it's time to start creating. And start, actors come over and like, here's what I'm thinking, and we're blocking. And there's been times that I've started blocking, and within 10 seconds, an actor's like, oh, no, I don't like that. I wouldn't stand. I'd be sitting over here. And then you've got one of two choices. You can go, listen, hang on, I'm the director. Or you go, there's a reason that this actor is feeling that way. Let me go and figure out why. And sometimes, and usually they're right, because they're, an actor's wearing the shoes of the character, so they have to embody that thing. They have to make that thing work for themselves. So you can't be rigid as a director and go, but I've got a shot in mind. You can't do that. And so you have to be able. Now you can nudge, and if there's a story reason why they shouldn't be sitting, then you have to say that. You're like, look, if you sit, then that's going to do this.
But that's great because you're a director that likes to work and listen to your actors, right?
Oh, you'd be a fool not to.
Well,
you'd be a fool not to. It's. I'm sure you've had it. I'm sure you, as an actor, you've had the directors that's like, oh, thank you for your thoughts. But here's what's going to happen. No, I can't do it. Now, that's not to say that there aren't moments that I have specific shots in mind, but I'll start with that. I'll say, I've got an idea for a shot, and this is what I'm thinking, and I'm hoping you guys can help me get to the shot. Or I could show them storyboards, I could show them a previs or whatever, and then they know what we're doing. But if it's like a dialogue scene, and I'm like already starting with, so I track in with you, and you land, then they're already like, okay, this guy's a technical guy. He's not, what actors want is to know that you're watching and that you're seeing the nuances, you're seeing the small things that they're doing, because the good ones have really broken down these scripts, so they know.
They've created their...
Yeah, so you, as a director, I want to see what you guys have come up with. And then if you don't have anything, or if it's not working, or whatever, then we could play, and we can nudge. And I'm like, well, how about this? How about that? And I could suggest, and, but I'd be a fool to not listen, not just to actors, but to anybody, even a DP, sound man, anybody,
Well, Jill, do you think, because I know that you do, you direct in Spanish and you direct in English.
I have
is
done it
there
both, yeah.
is there a difference, do you think, when you're working on a Spanish set than there is on American sets working with, or is it just under the same umbrella? It's just creating...
Yeah, it's all the same. I've shot a couple movies in the Dominican Republic. And, while obviously...
I used to live in Santo Domingo.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
I went to junior high school there.
I spent a lot of time down there, yeah.
Wow.
And but what I found is that, I found that the bulk of the crew spoke English, number one. But number two, they obviously spoke to each other in Spanish. But all the, there's little things that you have to learn, like instead of, give them the cue, dale la clave. Or whatever. There's like little things like that you sort of learn, how to say something in Spanish.
Well, will you explain your process to me? Are you a big storyboarder when you read a script?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you make what's on paper come alive? Like, what is your thought process? Yeah. How do you work? Because everybody has a different process.
Yeah. I am a big shot lister. I storyboard when needed. If it's an action scene or a scene with visual effects. But the first time I read a script, I'll write down notes, what I'm seeing, or like little bits, or little like a performance note or whatever, because those first ideas only come to you once, So you want to make sure you hang on to those initial ideas. So I write them down, and I sometimes refer to them, I sometimes don't, I sometimes keep them. But then once I really get into the prep and I really start to break something down, it's all about shot listing and meetings and letting everybody know, because and I distribute my shot list to anybody that wants it, because to me, I don't want it to be a grand mystery where where I'm sitting at Video Village and no one can look at my process. To me, it's like when I get on there, the job of a director is simply this: I am articulating what's in my head to everybody and saying this is what I see, and then the job of everyone is to execute what I'm saying. In TV, as opposed to film, there's some differences, that you have to sort of modulate a little bit when I'm directing for television as opposed to for film. But the process is identical.
That's the next thing I wanted to ask you actually, was what is the difference between TV and film?
The back row. In TV, there's a back row. In TV, you have it's a writer's medium. So the writer has created the show. So as a director, I work for the writer or the executive producer, the creator of the show.
For TV.
For TV. So, and then typically also in TV, there are executives from the network, sometimes that will come visit. And so oftentimes you'll say cut and you turn around. You turn around to the back row. And you go, what do you guys think? And then the creator or the writer will give you notes and like, well, I think it should be this, should be that. And so you dutifully take those notes and you go to the actors and You give them those notes, or to the DP. In film, there is no back row. When I'm ready to move on, I move on. And there's no turning around and looking at anybody. If I'm ready to move on, I just do it.
Ladrón que roba ladrón. Now, that movie, I got to give you kudos because even though it's a Spanish movie, you have so many different nationalities.
Yeah.
You have Cubans, you have Puerto Ricans, you
Colombians,
have
Argentinians,
Mexican, everything. I really find that unique because it's not done a lot. And also, it was filmed very American.
Right.
So could you give a little background on casting? Was that was that purposeful?
Yeah.
Or did you just say, these are the guys that, nailed the job and it doesn't matter what nationality they are?
That's what it was. It was, what happened is the movie was written, and the characters were written with no sort of ethnicity in mind. I mean, we knew we were going to make it in Spanish, but other than that, we didn't know whether a Mexican was going to play this part or an Argentinian was going to play that part. So what happened is, like the casting process in any movie, you just start going through, who you think is right, who's available, who means something in the marketplace. You go through all those things. And so then you end up with, a Mexican and a Colombian as the leads, and then the bad guy's an Argentinian, and then you've got, Oscar Torre, who was the Cuban actor, and then what you end up doing is then you end up adjusting the script, knowing, okay, we've got all these great actors. It would be silly to not give some specificity to each person's nationality, and that would just enrich the part without, getting soapboxy and getting up on and saying, we Argentinians have, you don't want to do that because you don't want to vilify anyone either. You don't want to say Argentinians all suck or Colombians all suck. You never want to do that.
Right.
It just so happens that the bad guy in Ladrón was un Argentino. But there were things that Saúl Lizazo brought to the part that were specific that he brought. He was like, oh, you know what I would say here? I would say, and I'm like, oh, great, yeah, go ahead and, and it's all just little nuances and like detail work. But, it's funny because I don't know how to make a Mexican movie or an Argentinian movie or a Latin. I don't know how to do that. I know I'm an American. I was born in New York. I know how to make an American movie. Whether it's in English or in Spanish, all I can do is do I grew up on a steady diet
Just
of
make
Spielberg
movie, right?
and Star Wars. Like, to me, I don't. So when I'm directing, even if it's in Spanish, I'm still doing it the way that that I see it, and the way that I was influenced by American movies, and by more specifically by popcorn movies. I'm not a big indie film guy, a big art house guy. So for me, all my influences are all sort of popcorny kind of Hollywood type movies. So that's why my movies and even my TV shows, to a certain extent, feel the way they do. It's because that was my influence. I'm not an art house guy, and the moment that something starts to feel pretentious or whatever, I instantly start rolling my eyes. Like we were talking before this, that I have a working class background, so I'm always at odds. The filmmaker in me is always at odds with the working class guy in me. That I'm always back and forth going. The filmmaker in me is like, oh, I have to see this because for the cinema, where the working class guy is going, oh, shut up, I don't want to see that pretentious drivel. So, but that's why it feels the way it does. It's not because we sat around twirling our mustaches going, aha, let's make a Hollywood. That's just how, I don't know another way of doing it.
But Joe, I wish more people in Hollywood would follow in your footsteps because, actors should get work for nailing the role and not what nationality or ethnicity they are.
That's correct.
So I applaud you for that.
But I do that with casting in general, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's television or film. For me, unless you're doing a period piece and it's specific to an era, and obviously it's like, England in the 1800s, it would be weird to suddenly have somebody, that wasn't English. Like, that would be weird. But if you're doing a modern day, it's a contemporary story, and like the character is John Smith and, Jacqueline Henderson, I always say, bring me everybody. Bring me white, bring me black, bring me Latino, bring me Asian, bring me everybody, and may the best man or woman win. Because to me, I'd rather have it opened up and maybe exposed to every actor as opposed to just this, because we're all sort of pre-wired to just assume that, oh, this should just be somebody who's Anglo. Oh, this should just be someone who's black. To me, unless it's a specific period thing, I want everybody.
Well, kudos. I love that. I really do. And I think more people should have open mind to doing the same.
I think there's more and more people that are coming around to that way of thinking. I feel.
Joe, who's your inspiration?
In terms of film artists, like filmmakers, Spielberg, Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis. I mean, those are the two guys that strongly influence to this day. To this day,
Would you love to work with Steven Spielberg?
Of course. I mean, that's
Who
like,
wouldn't, right?
I think that's the moment I cash in. You know, like I either work for Spielberg or I do a Star Wars movie. I think at that point I cash in. Like where do I go from there? You know, I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. You know, I'm retired. And I go. You know, I'm gonna go open up like a bookstore somewhere in Iowa or something. You know, who knows? That'd be great. But I think there's also a part of me that you know. Would be intimidated, I think, to, you know, like, oh crap, Spielberg, but who wouldn't want to be in that sort of company, and you know, and it's sort of a, you know, would be just from a learning standpoint to be around someone like that and just be able to filter as much as you can and watch their process and watch what they do. Oh no, it'd be amazing. But yeah, it's Spielberg without a doubt, and Zemeckis.
Oh my God! Well, hello.
Yeah, that's
you can't get any better than that, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any crazy funny stories like on set? I know you've done horror.
Yeah.
Do you have anything on set while you were shooting that happened that was kind of weird?
Well, I did an episode of From Dusk Till Dawn that, and it's basically, it was Robert Rodriguez's movie that he then adapted into a television show. So we did 3 seasons of that, and I did a number of episodes, including the series finale. And but there was one episode in particular that the story was that it was a bunch of vampires that would torture humans and, you know, cut them up into pieces. You know, so when you walk into, so the idea was this like torture room where they would do all sorts of nasty things to humans. And even vampires, and culebras actually is what we call them. We call them culebras on From Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay.
But the idea was like it was this room where basically there was going to be body parts hanging on meat hooks. There was going to be body parts strewn on tables. It was just and the floor was bloody. The walls were bloody. There,
you're scaring me already.
Like there was like shackles on walls where they had bound someone, whatever. And so you know, we had talked about this room and all that, and it was actually built for the episode before me.
You're making me sweat right now.
I got onto set, it had already been built, and they were shooting on day one. So I said, "Oh, I want to go down. I want to see the set because I've been reading about it, And so I said, let me go check it out. And when I walked in, I knew, and it's K&B, the same people that do The Walking Dead, were doing all the creature effects and all the blood and all the body parts and all that. And so I walked on, and I got to tell you, I had a reaction when I walked in there because it was so disgusting. And it was just so, because it looks so unbelievably real. So I walk on, and there's a moment where you kind of like go, oh God, I'm going to hell if I walk in here. And so but obviously I had to shoot in there. So I said, well, this is all clearly fake. So I had to go and touch everything. And I was like, okay, that's foam rubber. Okay, that's corn syrup and food. Okay, oh, all right. And then the moment I touched everything, and I realized, like there was like a hook with like blood and guts on the end of it, and I pick it up, and it's like, oh, okay, that's like paper, and all right, got it. And then, like I had to go and touch everything to make sure, okay, it's all fake. All right, thank God.
Oh my God.
Good. And then I'm working in there.
Joe, I'm sweating.
Oh my God.
Okay, I've never watched a horror film in my life.
No, I don't blame you. I always say that I'm not a huge fan of watching some horror movies, especially like the devil ones. Like whenever the devil,
that's the ones.
Like the devil ones are the ones that I'm like, I can't.
I can't. I've never seen Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby,
no, they stay with
The
you.
Omen.
It freaks you out.
No,
it freaks you out. But I can see like if it's like blood and guts and it's gory and all that, yeah, whatever.
Like Chainsaw Massacre. That's kind of.
But when it's like a slasher thing, I'm like, okay. But it's like the ones about the devil's in the room. And I'm like, oh God, I can't. Yeah. That's what I passed on a script. I passed on a script that was like all like a possession thing and all that. And I'm like,
really?
I wonder if devote an hour, a year and a half to my life of doing. Oh God, no.
But do you think it's because of the Cuban juju?
Maybe. It was like I don't believe in Santeria, but just in case.
Yeah. It's like,
I don't want to mess with it, just in case.
That's me. Yeah. Amen, brother. Yeah. So with all of this stuff that you do, TV, movies, write, produce, how the hell did you write a novel? You are a very accomplished man.
Thank you. No, it's there was a guy that I worked with once who told a lot of great pieces of advice. His name is Will Gluck, and Will was a showrunner, and now he's a director in his own right. But he said, when you're a writer or you're a creator, you have a lot of hours where you're not at work. You have a lot of hours where you're not busy. And you should fill those hours writing something. You should fill those hours creating something. Now, of course, if you've got, like, as we get older, we have families. Now, that time it starts becoming any less. But
Right.
But rather than what he was saying is, that, the people that sort of make it and the people that really succeed are the people that say, "Ooh, I've got 2 hours. I've got 2 options in those 2 hours. I could dick around in front of the television and just flip around and watch Netflix and just go, or I could sit around for 2 hours and I could write something." Now sometimes watching Netflix, you're watching them for research, so that's still part of work.
Right.
But his philosophy, and I've sort of taken that as my own, is nobody has, where they, some people say, "I just have no time." That's bullshit. Of course you have time. You're just not making time. Like on the weekends, like I spend, there's times that, like at home, my daughter's watching something, my wife is doing something. I've got time. So I can either sure, I could take a nap if I wanted to, and it would be great. I'd love to take a nap.
Oh, they're overrated.
Yeah, but you take a nap for an hour and a half, and you just nap for an hour and a half. Okay. Which is, I guess, it's good for the body. You rest and all that. Or you could use that hour and a half, and you can, sit down with my good friend Carlos Cotto, who ran From Dusk Till Dawn, loves to go and sit outside, and he smokes a cigar. And he brings out his book, his little, like he's got like a little journal, and he noodles, and he goes, "I'm just thinking," and he'll like smoke cigars, and I'm like, "That's great." And I do that as well. You could take these things from people, and you can realize that the people who are successful
Are doers.
Yeah, and they don't waste a lot of time with "I'm tired" or with "I'm too," or I don't have any time, or my mind's not into it. All right, well, cool, well, good for you. Enjoy your nap and all that. In the meantime, I'm going to go and do this other thing. And that's sort of the common denominator with people who are truly successful is they just work at it. And I've got I won't mention his name, but I've got a friend of mine who had his own theories as to why I was getting opportunities and he wasn't. Like we came up at the same time, and then it just got to the point where he just wasn't getting the opportunities, and he had all these like nutty theories. And then one time, it was just one of those times that I was just tired of hearing them. I just said, "Dude, I just outworked you." That's just what it comes down to. And I'm not trying to be a dick, but I just, when you were, having a couple beers with some buddies, I was over here doing something, and that's
Right.
That's just what it's a little bit of a sacrifice of having.
Well, it's a big sacrifice because you're constantly moving, and motivation is bullshit as far as I'm concerned. Motivation, people are like, "Oh, I'm not motivated." Well, motivation is a way to keep you. Oh, if you're waiting to be motivated, that's just a way to keep you.
Not doing.
They say it takes 2 seconds for you to have an idea, stall on that. And then all of a sudden your brain takes it as something that's not that good that it's going to protect you against, right?
Yeah.
So motivation, a lot of times, it's not about you need to be motivated to do something. It's just in the doing, and it sounds like you do.
You just sit
all
down and
the
start
time.
doing. And there's times that I sit down to write or to come up with something, and it's garbage, but I'm doing it. Like I'm making the brain work. Like I'm not just sitting in front of the computer and I'm going to wait for the perfect sentence. The perfect collection of words that create perfect prose before I start. You just start doing stuff, and it's 90% of it is garbage, but you're getting the mind to work, and you're, and even if you're thinking, even if I'm, on my feet in my office pacing, when I'm thinking, that's all part of it as well.
That's why you're so successful, Joe, because you're out there and you're doing it and you're working. And do you have anything up and coming that you want to talk about?
Well, I'm leaving to go do. I've done a lot. I've been at Disney and Nickelodeon for 18 years, back and forth. Where I've done shows for both. For
a lot of the
places.
shows you've done, my son used to watch.
There's a
Imagination Movers.
Oh my God! Yeah. But I've done that. But what was weird is that and I love the family space. Like I never thought that I would end up in the family space, but when I did, I found that I didn't slum it. I actually enjoyed doing the work in that world. But what ends up happening, it's a really weird thing in this industry because when you start doing kid stuff, then the rest of the industry is like, ooh, well, clearly you can't do 1 hours because
Right. They want a pigeonhole.
You're the kids guy. You do things with fart jokes and booger jokes and all that. Like, how could you possibly do something with, layers and depth like we do here in 1 hour world? So for the longest time, I was like, I was like, oh God, I may never break into 1 hours, which is what I've always wanted. So I just continued to make films. I made movies and whenever I got opportunities. And in fact, when I was making Ladrón que robó ladrón, about day 3, I was pulled aside by a couple of the producers because I was encouraging funny. I was encouraging comedy.
Right.
And they were like, we're just afraid that you're going to turn this into a Nickelodeon movie. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? It's just funny,
Yeah.
So, but that sort of the family thing was always sort of haunting me, no matter what I was doing. Because of the family thing, everyone's like, oh my God, what you going to do? I'm like, I'm a
But
grown
I think
man.
you're breaking out of that.
Yeah, I'm not going to, I'm not going to do a booger joke, in the middle of but whatever. And, but I, luckily, thankfully, again, because of the work thing, it's like I just kept at it. And I'm like, guys, I'm not just this. And then Carlos Cota, who I just mentioned, saw Ladrón que robó ladrón, and when he saw it, and we had known each other for a while, and he came out and he saw the movie, and he's like, dude, you should be doing 1 hour television. And I was like, I know, that's what I've been saying. And he's like, I'm going to find an opportunity, I'm going to bring you on to something that I'm doing, and he did, and it was From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
That's sort of, and the moment I did my first couple of 1 hours, it's just taken off. So now it's this weird thing because I still kind of bounce back and forth. But what it is now, it's just kind of showing that I could do this, but then I can go do this. And so I'm doing, I'm going to go off in a week to go do another episode of Andy Mack, which is a Disney Channel show that is, I think it's not just a booger and fart joke show. It's a very complex show. It's a great show. It's about a 13-year-old girl who discovers that the woman that she thought was her older sister turns out was actually her mother. And so this is on Disney Channel. So it's cool, and it's got these wonderful layered stories, and it's all very grounded. It's not shticky like a lot of kids shows are. And then right after that, I'm going and doing 2 more episodes of Siren on Freeform. So I go from that, a kid's show about an angsty 13-year-old girl to Bristol Cove, a fictional town about predatory mermaids. So it's fun. It's a blast to be able to go back and forth.
A day in a life with Joe.
That's right. To be able to do both worlds. That's like, it's. I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful, and that I'm able to now at this point in my career go back and forth.
Well, Joe, I'm wondering if you'll play a little game with us called #FakeNews.
Okay.
I'm going to call my producer in here.
All right.
And let's get this game going. Let me just tell you, I always lose, but I feel competitive today.
So this is. I have to know if this headline is real or not real. Okay,
yeah, Macy will explain everything.
Okay, got it.
#FakeNews.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me on #FakeNews today. Joe, I'm so excited to play this game with you.
Oh, cool. I am too.
Yeah? Are you
I'm a little
ready?
nervous.
But Joe's going down.
Well,
I'm feeling competitive today.
I don't know. You don't have the best track record, Elizabeth. But
I am certifiably stupid, so I will probably lose it.
I highly doubt that. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to read you 2 news headlines, and one is real and one is fake, and you're going to pick out which one is the fake news.
Okay.
Okay, are you guys ready?
Let's do this.
And who goes first? Who jumps?
I'm going to let my guest answer first, and then I'll answer after.
Okay.
All right, news headline number 1. Florida woman named Crystal Methvin gets busted with crystal meth. So I'm going to let you guys think on that one. Okay, and news headline number 2. New York man sleepwalks to work naked 3 times in 1 week. Which is the fake news?
Joe?
The second one is fake news. First one is real.
Okay.
I'm going to say anything that sounds crazy and fucked up and it's in Florida is real news.
So you're only picking it because it's in Florida. Is that
Exactly.
What I'm getting? Okay.
That's the only reason.
Oh my God, we have 2 winners today. Yes.
Look at
You
that.
guys both got it.
Yes.
I cannot believe it,
I think
Elizabeth.
this is my
never
first
happened.
win.
I think
Look
it
at
is. I'm so proud of you.
Joe, you won a Cohiba.
Did I really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I have a
Can we
Cohiba
smoke it right
waiting
now?
for
Can
you.
we smoke it in the booth?
I'll bring you guys a lighter.
All right. That'll be interesting.
All right. Well, thank you so much for playing with me today, guys, and I'll catch you next week on #FakeNews.
All right. Thank you very much.
So, Joe, thanks again for coming in. And can you let our listeners know all your social media handles?
Absolutely. I'm on Facebook. Just Joe Menendez. Just look for my ugly mug on there.
He's cute. Don't let him fool you.
Thank you. And then on Instagram, which I only got on Instagram, I'm not kidding, like a month and a half ago.
Oh my God.
So it's the Joe Menendez, and between the and the Joe, it's
So it's the underscore Joe underscore Menendez.
Yes.
Is that correct?
I should look at my phone. Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to say yes with confidence.
Yes, I think
Yes,
that is correct.
I think that is correct. Yeah.
Okay. I will also have it in the description for
Okay.
people to be able to follow you.
I seriously sound like my mother right now. We're like, I think there's a little line under the thing.
I don't know what it's called, but it's a little line. All right. So I asked this question to all my guests.
Okay.
And if you were left unsupervised and nobody could see you or hear you on set, what would you do?
Well, what typically happens, I think this happens to any director, but what typically happens to me when I'm done is I start to replay the day of everything that I've just shot. And, I go through sort of a mental checklist, like, all right, I got that. Okay, that works. That'll cut into that. That'll cut into that. And inevitably, there's going to be something like, oh, why did I do that? I could have just, if I would have, and I could have. So I think if I was left alone, I would, this is probably cheating, but if I were left alone, I would probably call back a few actors and just go, it's just me. I have a camera. And just come back. I'm just going to redo some shots. No one needs to know because, you never want, the producer to know because then everyone's in overtime and all that. So it's like, come on, we're just going to do a few shots. So I would turn the lights on. I would get the camera and I would just, I operate cameras. So I would go back and, and oftentimes, even when you've cut a scene, I'll go back to a producer and I'm like, oh, you know what? I would love to get back in there and do this shot or add this or whatever. Oh, there's no money, Joe. There's no money. There's no time, which is, it doesn't matter what budget level. It's if it's a, big TV show or a small movie, there's never any time. So I think if I was alone, I think I would just work. I think I would see like, what can I do? I have all the equipment at my disposal. I've got the set. And then I would find a way of shooting things that I can add to the movie or the episode that would improve it.
Well,
It's
there
so
you go.
lame.
Joe, you're such a worker.
I should have just said, I'll wear a feather boa, and I'll prance around in a kimono, or like I would love to.
Ding, 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 ding,
No,
ding.
I'll do the thing. What's the name of the guy in Silence of the Lambs? I'm going to tuck my penis between my legs and dance around in a kimono. But I would just do inserts.
You're for free.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay anybody.
No.
All right, Joe. Well, thanks again, dude. It was like a pleasure having you.
Oh, thank you very much. This has been fun. This has been a lot of fun. Anytime.
Thanks for listening to Left Unsupervised. Don't forget to stalk us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Left Unsupervised Podcast. We'll catch you guys next week. Thanks for listening.